Work hard. Do what you're asked to do. That's realistically, those are the two biggest things in my mind of what you can do. Show that you're willing to put the work in, and show that you're willing to buy into the vision of the company.
Welcome to Blue Collar Bros, a home service podcast focused on scaling family business and discovering what differentiates the best of the best within the industry. We are your bros, the Yarbrough brothers. We have Will, Kolby, and myself, Tucker. Today, we are joined by the red-headed rambler, the service manager of service managers, the paragon of technical excellence, our service manager, Stephen Swaim. Swaim, it's good to have you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate being here.
Canned clapping.
The paragon of technical excellence.
I just wish you would have told me, because I was just about to bust up.
He was practicing yesterday, and he had the red bearded something.
I had the Viking ilk.
Yeah, the Viking ilk.
The Viking ilk. But I felt like
it.
if I fumbled that bag, if I got a little fat tongued on it, that it might come off as Viking elk, which I guess could still work.
Yeah, that works. We talked about that. Yeah.
But I just figured I'd go with an easier to say intro. But yeah, no, my goal every time is to make somebody laugh, hype them up, give kind of that WWE style entrance, and that's the goal. Well, Stephen, I appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning and hop on the podcast with us, kind of share a little bit about your story, where you see the industry heading, and kind of just ramble on from there. Talk about where we're going as a company, where you see technicians thriving, where you see opportunity for those who are looking to get into the trades. But let's begin with you. How did you get into the trades in general? What's your story, like getting into the skilled trades?
Well, initially I was, before I got into the trades, I was moving furniture. And that's not a sustainable career by any means. Knees, back, shoulders, it tears them up. So I was moving furniture, got to the point where they were going to put me in a position of less strenuous work, and that ended up not happening. So I told them I was going to turn in my 2 weeks and go looking for another job. So at the time, I was going to church with Rick Yarbrough, and asked him if Darren needed any help. And he said, well, let me ask. And so he went in and asked and said, hey, can you come in for an interview on Wednesday? I came in for an interview with their install manager, Mac, and the rest is history. So he told me to bring a tape measure and a razor knife my first day of work, and those are about the only tools I really had that would be useful in HVAC. So,
gotcha.
There you go.
What year is this?
This was 2011.
Okay.
Okay.
It's actually Valentine's Day 2011 when I started.
Wow. Like, honey, I love you. I'm changing careers.
Yes.
I gotta go get a different job. No, so as far as coming into the trades though, this was kind of like your first exposure into the skilled trade space, or did you have anything prior that kind of had you worked with your hands before, or you obviously moving stuff? But
absolutely. So prior to that, just over the summertime when I was 16, 17, I was working for the county. We paving roads, patching potholes, things of that nature. So I'd always kind of worked with my hands. And then, throughout my college years, I worked at the computing and telecommunications department, troubleshooting, fixing phone lines, things of that nature. So I had a little bit of troubleshooting experience and knew very, very little about electrical, but some. And so, that just kind of, I was able to use some of that stuff once I got into the HVAC world, but not a ton of it.
Gotcha. So you came in, joined the install team. You're over in install for how many years? 4
I was over in install for a year.
A year?
Yes.
Okay. And then we threw you into a service truck and said, here we go.
Yes. So the situation with that is I was coming in early every day. The install crew starts at 7. I was coming in at 6:30. And Darren had started giving me these labs that apparently have been around for generations. Because even the guys now, they're saying that they're using the same labs in Votech that Darren was giving me. And so I started coming in and doing these electrical labs, drawing them up, and then working them up on a board that Darren actually built so that we could wire them. And I got to a point in that where Darren said, hey, if you get this one right on the first time, don't trip the breaker, don't mess it up, we'll put you in a truck. And so I went over there, I drew it up, wired it up, everything was right. And a month later, I was in a truck.
Outstanding. And at that time, so moving over into service, we had what, like 2 service techs, 3 service techs?
We had 3 service techs. We had just opened up the service manager position, and so pulled that away from Mac, and then we had 3 others, me and a service manager.
Gotcha. And so, obviously spent most of your career working in service then, and then probably 4 years ago, we put you in the service manager seat.
Absolutely, and that was an interesting one because it was right after the July 4th weekend, and we had probably 3 full days on the schedule.
Yeah.
For everybody.
And so if he
that
can
was
make
fun.
it through this, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Well, this is the Yarbrough ways. We're going to start you off with the toughest thing you might ever have to face, and then it's only easier from there.
I was gonna say it's all downhill from there.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
So probably the first month I was probably 3/4 in the field, and then trying to catch up on the office stuff and part ordering and stuff like that after, in the afternoon after I got out of the field and done with the calls for the day.
And leading up, just to give a little bit of clarification, you knew that a service manager position was eventually going to come your way. Like we'd kind of talked about that you were the next in line. However, it was kind of a shock to the system of how early and how quick it happened.
Yes.
Our previous service manager decided to leave midsummer, and so we were like, oh no, all right, we got to scramble here. Yeah. And so, what would you say? Obviously, haven't had those conversations that hey, service manager is probably where you're going to end up eventually. Having had those thoughts leading into the seat, and then now having been in the seat for 4 years, what did you perceive the seat of service manager to be and entail versus what are some things that maybe you were shocked by and what it actually is?
Yeah. So as far as what I perceive the seat to be, it's pretty close to where I am now is kind of how I perceived it to be. But not having a ton of time to sit and learn, prior to getting thrown in the seat, it was a shock just seeing how much there actually was to it. And like you said, we had talked about it some, and this is the direction that we want to go. This is what we'd like to see from a service manager, but without actually having sat in the seat for 2 weeks before actually being thrown in there and saying, okay, you're the service manager. I had no idea really what to expect. I knew there was going to be, a lot of part ordering and things of that nature. But, the biggest thing is the calls from the guys for tech support, which I was already, even being in the field still, I was already taking those calls. Yeah. From our service techs, from our install guys, just helping them walk them through the technical things. And so, that really wasn't a whole lot of a change. But from where it was to where it is now is really night and day. Being that we've added a maintenance manager, that's helped out a whole lot. With 11 guys out there, having a maintenance manager to help take some of the load off has been a real blessing.
Yeah. And so kind of last question on origins here then is, you've been here since 2011. Obviously a lot, not only in the industry has changed, the economic landscape has changed, but just internally with our business practices and things that we're doing have changed. So what are your thoughts, on the overall company change that you've seen since you've been here, just in, a couple sentences?
So there's been a big culture change for sure. The basis of the culture has always stayed the same. We are a family company. based on Christian values. But so that has always stayed the same, but just the way that we have started doing things in the last 4 or 5 years has really shifted as far as, getting the guys engaged and involved with the vision of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about vision of the company, it's one of those things where like you can only grow into the vision that you see, and so that leads us kind of to recruitment. And so whenever we're looking at recruitment, service manager, you're outside of GM status. You're the number 2 recruiter in the company. What are some hurdles that you faced in recruitment?
Finding guys that want to work. That's a big thing. Finding guys that have the drive. You never know what you're getting. Everybody's going to tell you the best things about them in an interview, and so trying to vet that and figure out, is this guy really telling the truth? If I had a lie detector test set up in the interview room, that'd be a blessing. But
hey, you're here for this job interview. If you'll hook up these probes,
yes, absolutely.
And, we'll just get on the road.
Yeah.
Everything you say may be used against you.
Yes.
Also, please sit in that seat. Don't mind the wires, though.
Yeah. No, as far as this in recruitment, on your what are your biggest? Obviously finding guys that are willing to work, but what do you do whenever they get here? Because recruitment's not just about just hiring a hand.
Right.
It's about hiring and then keeping and then training. What happens whenever we get them here? What's the process?
So we get them here, and we're really working on the process of onboarding, and we're Philip and I, the maintenance manager, and I are really working on getting that process set to where we will be able to vet them within the first 4 or 5 weeks of them being here, and seeing if they're gonna fit with the culture, and 2 actually be able to handle the workload and things that we're asking them to do. And so the process is getting there, but as far as what we're doing currently, just trying to get them ingrained in the Yarbrough culture. Letting them know right from the get-go, hey, this is what we expect. Attitude wise, numbers wise, work ethic wise, and really pushing that on them. And that's probably the biggest challenge so far is getting the processes and procedures and getting buy-in on those. We've built those. Tucker likes to say our R&D department, our rob and duplicate. And so, getting those and learning those and then implementing that has been a huge challenge. I do see with the newer guys, it's a lot easier to get that with the guys that have not worked anywhere before, guys that haven't been working here for 10, 12 years that have the old way really just ingrained in them.
What would be the first, on someone that doesn't know anything, a younger Steven, all he has is a box blade.
And a tape measure.
And a tape measure.
Can't forget the tape measure.
What would be the, as far as on recruitment, and what's the fastest way to, that in your eyes would make that recruit valuable to you, specifically in the service manager seat?
Just have a willingness to learn.
Okay.
A willingness to learn, a willingness to work.
Okay.
Because HVAC is not easy work. And you look at the install side, and that's lifting every day. That's heavy lifting every day. The service side, you don't have to lift heavy every day, but you're in an attic almost every day. And when it's, I think today it's going to be 96 degrees out there, so the attics are going to be 140 degrees.
Right.
It's that, just being willing to get into that situation and find a way to thrive in that situation.
Right.
I think there's a lot to be said too of being able to keep a level head in those moments of whenever everything's hot, whenever you've cut yourself or you've shocked yourself or something's going on that's throwing adversity your way, to keep a cool and level head and not get too ingrained in the suck of the moment and kind of zoom out and recognize, okay, this is just right here. Once I get this problem fixed, I can get out of this attic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big deal, as well as like finding success in the trades is a lot about having the self-control to keep your emotions tempered. Yeah. So keeping a level head in those moments of stress, I think, is another thing that like is an unsung piece of the pie, because I think a lot of times in the trades, we talk a big game that we're looking for somebody with technical aptitude, and we are. However, I think something that gets overlooked is the soft skill side of things, and it's the ability to temper your emotions, keep yourself in check, and keep a level head, because I think that then accelerates your ability to excel in the technical.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I've really been trying to do whenever we're looking at guys coming in and adding new employees is hire for culture, because you can teach the technical side of it. Hire for their attitude, hire for their work ethic, and then teach what needs to be taught.
I think that kind of leads into a question that I've had, but it just so people that, if someone's watching this podcast and they're like a young guy, a young Steven, and this is Kolby kind of coined it. What are some things that you see in guys that you're going, oh, this guy's going to be a good leader, or this guy's going to be a really good, I can see him moving forward in this position?
Well, again, it goes back to the attitude and the willingness to learn, the willingness to, do what we're asking and buy in to what we're asking them to do. And I really think that's the biggest part of it. Because like I said, you can teach the technical side of it, but if you have somebody that is very, very reluctant to buy into the processes and to buy into the culture and the vision of the company, it's going to be really difficult to picture them in a leadership position.
Yeah. Even picturing them, at Yarbrough's long term too.
Yeah.
So
this is a kind of a funny bit, but I've seen that TikTok trend of the girls going, I'm looking for a guy in finance, 6'5", blue eyes. Yeah. It's but in the trades, it's kind of like that. I'm looking for a guy with some, attitude skills, some
willingness to learn, work ethic. I'm looking for a man with EQ, not IQ.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So it's funny though too, because there is that element of it, right? Because it's like that element of like, at least it gets tossed around. From what I've heard, is like, guys are like, I'm looking for a technician, who knows what he's doing, all this kind of stuff. And I think the trend has been lately is like, oh, okay, actually on the technical side of things, we can teach you the technical. I'm looking for a guy that's willing to go into those 140-degree attics and not just complain for the next 2 weeks that it's hot. So it's like, everyone's hot.
Yeah, go in there and still be able to, once you get out of that attic and you're talking with the customer, still be able to communicate well and keep your cool, even though you might be angry because I sent you into a 140-degree attic.
It's all Steven's fault. He's the reason.
Someone who can be, constantly remind themselves, like, there's a reason why I'm in this attic, and it's because this family needs help.
Yes.
Yes. So, you're talking to someone that, maybe a young kid, young, male or female that is interested in the trades. What do you say? What advice would you give them if they're interested but they're not joining yet?
That's a tough question to answer, because most of the people that I'm bringing in, they are wanting into the trades.
Okay. Maybe biased.
Yeah.
It's an easy sell.
Yeah. But if we're talking on, going to high school career days and
Right.
things of that nature, and the kids don't really know what they want to do, you can make a good living in the trades. Mm-hmm. You really can. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, all the time, my mom and my sister both have master's degrees. Yeah. And they are not bringing home as much as what you can if you work in the trades. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, money is a motivating factor for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Every time I process payroll, I say that if they quit paying me, I'd quit showing up too. So,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, but, with money being a motivating factor, that's a big thing. Is yes, you can go to college and you can get a job, you can make a career out of it.
Yeah.
Being in the trades, if you make a career out of it, realistically in just about every aspect of the game, you're going to be bringing home, more than what you would even with a master's degree
and without debt.
And without
And
debt.
without debt.
Yeah.
I think that's the piece of the pie though that gets glossed over, especially in today's social media culture. Is I think we've been sold a bill of goods in a lot of ways, but especially on like the advice of follow your passion, and it's like go do what you're passionate about. And I think that's like to echo Mike Rowe, like that's the worst bit of advice that you could be given anywhere. And I like to look at just being a history and language nerd is the etymology just of the word, and it comes from passionem, which is to suffer and die. And so it's like that whole thing of follow your passion. Right now, the way it's used is such a weak calling, but really, if we dive down to what the word means, man, like there's very few things I'm passionate about. So to bring your passion with you wherever you go, and understand that like a career is hard no matter what. There's suck no matter what. There's things you don't like no matter what.
Yeah.
The odds of you being of the lucky few who get to do the thing that you love and invigorates you every single day. I think that's the farce of it. That's the Instagram and Facebook culture that drives people mad whenever they're looking for it, because there's hard work in everything, and the trades are no different. Right. But I think it's the most gratifying thing that you can do, because you get to help others.
Yeah. Okay. And I think it's a hard position of whenever we get into the trades, understanding that like yes, it is difficult. Yes, it is hot. But on the flip side, yes, I get to help people that can't help themselves whenever it comes to their comfort inside their house. We get to help people, get their hot water tank replaced, get hot water for the home. Now they can take hot showers. There's so many different facets that can help be a driver for. It's a driver for me whenever I'm up in a hot attic. It's like, I'm helping solve problems that this homeowner can't solve by themselves.
Well, in 2021, it's literally life support. 2021, Tuck. That's where we're at. My head went to 2021. What are we doing here, guys?
Are you referencing now?
I was intending to, yes.
Oh, okay.
That's in 2024.
I thought you were like referencing something in the past. No,
I meant beginning in. So like my mind went COVID. Like everybody got sent home.
Yeah.
I tell the story of where my head was at. Whenever everybody got sent home, like through the pandemic and all that, it literally became life support. Like your home had to have clean. It's always had to have clean running water and hot water. But Oklahoma, 106 degrees yesterday in some parts of the state. Like air conditioners aren't just a luxury. That is life support. And so you're selling something that somebody has to have in their home, and frankly, you are among the select few who can work on it and fix and make that problem go away. Goodness gracious, 2021, guys. I am stuck on that one. I don't know what happened there.
You stopped by 3 years. It's all right.
In an instant, Tucker got 3 years older.
Yeah. I'm just kind of piggybacking off some of these ideas, but like, all right, so someone comes and works in the trades, they're in it, they've got a good attitude. What role do you see mentorship playing in the cultivation of, I mean, really, this can be a general question, like for really anyone in any type of position, but what role do you see mentorship playing in seeing guys succeed in this industry?
So, having a mentor in the industry, whether it be, on the technical side of things, as far as having a lead tech that will answer your questions, that will help you through, specific things, or even up in the management and in the ownership side, having somebody that you can go to and bounce ideas off of, and learn from is valuable. I mean, I can't think of a stronger word right now, but it's one of those things that you have to have somebody that you can bounce ideas off of, especially if you're moving into a leadership position in the trades. having somebody to bounce those ideas off of, to learn, where they messed up so you don't repeat those mistakes. It's a highly valuable, mentorship plays a highly valuable role in that aspect of it.
I want to expand on this a little bit. So probably about a year ago, you joined an AB group. A year ago?
It's been probably a year and a half now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in there. You've been a part of an advisory board group through the Service Nation Alliance that we're a part of. How has it impacted your leadership and your development of being able to talk to other service managers around the nation on a frequent basis?
Yeah, I mean, just getting ideas from them and sharing ideas with them. Again, it's the R&D department. They'll come up with some things and some ideas that I'm like, man, that sounds like a really great idea. Or they're already running, running these programs in their businesses, and just having that information, and that it's great. But also knowing that what you are going through right now and the struggles that you are encountering with your team, you're not alone in that. And so that's helpful as well. If you're having struggles with guys calling out of work for the day, if you're having struggles with, guys not following processes and procedures, and just talking that through with other service managers, they know exactly what you're going through. They've experienced it too, or they are experiencing it now. And, bouncing ideas off of each other so that you can get through it together. It's awesome. And I love being a part of that group. We meet every 2 weeks, and I think I probably missed 2 of them. Even when I was off of work, I think it was this last year, Thanksgiving week. I took all Thanksgiving week off, and Wednesday was our meeting of that week, and I jumped in and joined in with the group and all of that. I was wearing my camo shirt, and
they got vacation swing.
Whole new level.
Yeah. I'd just come in from the woods, and I was wearing my camo shirt. I took my orange off, but I was wearing my camo shirt, and I got called out on it. So
not only did they get vacation swing, they got straight up out of the woods hunting swing.
Yeah.
All right, so we're kind of diving into conversations about leadership. What would, because you can be a leader in every position. At Yarbroughs, what would make a good leader in the maintenance department? What would make a good leader in the service department? What are the attributes? What is something that a leader would do for in our culture in Yarbroughs to be a good leader in maintenance or service?
Being willing to share what you know,
Okay.
is a big thing there.
Okay.
If you are successful at something,
Yeah.
I don't want you to hold that back. I don't want you to keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
If you share that with somebody,
Yeah.
you're going to be helping everybody. You're going to be helping the company, and in helping the company, you're helping yourself. Don't keep your stuff, your secrets to yourself. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
But being willing to go out and help people.
Yeah. And what would be like like if you wanted to dive into like what was like secrets would be like? What do you mean by secrets?
How are you getting reviews?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
How are you flipping these leads?
Yeah.
What is your process in that?
Yeah. How are you getting the success that you're receiving?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Things of that nature. And yes, we want to see leaders that have success in what they do. Otherwise, if you're not successful in what you do, nobody else is going to look up to you and say,
Right.
And ask for those tips.
Yeah.
So we want somebody that's successful in what they do, but we also want somebody that's going to share that and share their path to success.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of something that Jocko Willink wrote about in one of his books. I think it's like Leadership, Strategy, and Tactics. But it talks about leading up the chain of command.
Yes.
So it's like even if you're the guy on the on the low end of the totem pole as far as the leadership structure goes, you can still lead up the chain of command, and it's by doing those things.
Yes,
So
absolutely. And leadership strategy and tactics, I'd say currently that's my favorite book.
That's a good one.
In the last 2 years, I've read it. I've listened to it twice and read it twice, and it's an outstanding book.
Oh man!
So
I've just given it one listen. I need to revisit it.
there's a plug for Jocko.
There you go. Yeah, Jocko, if you're listening.
That's one of many plugs for Jocko. On this
Yes,
I was gonna
absolutely,
say,
absolutely.
That's not the first one.
And that kind of leads into the second thing I was thinking on leadership is, and it's one of Jocko's key tenets is taking ownership of when you do mess up.
Yeah.
I don't want to see my techs passing off something that went wrong to somebody else. We've had situations where I've talked with somebody about this and or about a specific thing, and they said, well, this person was doing that. I said, okay, well, you were the lead man on the job. You need to take ownership of this.
I think a lot of HVAC technicians who might be listening to this podcast might be thinking to themselves, what's the fastest or best way I can grow in the company that I'm at? Where can I, bloom where I'm planted? So I wanted to get your perspective on that. What could a technician do in your eyes in terms of everything we're talking about? What could they be doing right now to see that path of growth?
Work hard. Do what you're asked to do. That's realistically, those are the two biggest things in my mind of what you can do. Show that you're willing to put the work in, and show that you're willing to buy into the vision of the company.
Something too. So something that I struggle with a lot of times is sometimes like working hard means like slow down, take time.
Yeah.
Take time, because a lot of times if
Incorporate working hard to like being fast.
Yeah, just like working hard. I'm going to move fast.
Right.
I'm going to accomplish more faster.
Yeah.
And so it's like that's not exactly a direct correlation. So it's I think a lot of those times is those guys that you do seek success in is that they took the time to talk with a customer, to walk them through all of their steps. They take time to walk their teammates through a lot of stuff, share the things that they know.
Yes.
And so,
be efficient, but also be effective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every year at the start of the year, I write just a couple quotes at the front of my notebook that I like, or that I'm wanting to kind of adopt into my mindset. And this past year, at the front of my notebook, I wrote, "Busy does not equal productive." So there's not a correlation. Just because you're busy and putting out fires, or running 100 calls, or running 6 to 8 or 10 calls a day, or whatever it is, that doesn't mean you're productive.
Right.
However, it can feel the same. It gives off the same chemical responses in your body, makes you feel like you're doing something.
Putting out fires can be fun.
And it's addicting.
Yeah.
Because you're running around and it's run and gun. I mean, gosh, it's an action movie at that point.
Yeah.
But busy doesn't equal productive. You can have success on the 2 to 3 calls a day. Even more so than you could the 7 or 8 calls a day, because you're slowing down, you're taking time with the customer, you're building that relationship, and but the whole thing only works as long as you bill for what you do, bill for what you're worth. And I think that's one of the harder hurdles to overcome, in the industry, is technicians, HVAC people in general, not just technicians, are helpers. And that is the mindset that most people who are in the trades, whether they verbally or actually know it or say it themselves, you have to be a marginally selfless individual to work in 140 degree attics or 140 degree roofs. That's not something that you just sign up for unless you have just the thought of, hey, this is something worth doing. Whether it's for the altruism of helping someone else, or that it's just a noble cause that, hey, working with my hands is something good. But you have to bill for what you're worth, and that's often hard for someone who's in the mindset of a helper. I think that's a big hurdle that we've had to overcome. Internally, is getting through to our team of, hey, you're worth it. You have to bill for what you're worth, and you're worth it. And I think that's something that a lot of technicians tend to struggle with, because they're out there, they're hot, they're sweaty, they're dealing with the technical aspect, but then now we're turning around and asking them, hey, sell, which is in the technician world, a lot of times sell is a curse word.
Right.
Sell the solution. Sell the solution. And so how have you, managed, helping, we're still going through it obviously, but how have you managed or seen, other companies get over that hurdle of, technicians charging for what they're worth and selling and offering those solutions? What are some best practices? Because that's another way that people can find success is slowing down and selling what they're worth.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, we are still going through that in some cases.
We're still in the mud.
What I've seen and heard from a lot of the folks in my AB group is moving to performance pay, and going that route. And then at that point, it's up to the technician on how much they want to make, and that's based on what your production looks like. That's one of those things that I've seen, and they say, I've got a technician that, he's great with people, but he doesn't have the technical ability to really dig in and do stuff. Well, work on that technician with soft skills, because that's, if you have a technician that, knows just enough, and they're really great with people, they can still get that production, whether it's through service parts or through lead flips.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here. We're running down a fun path. So to the performance pay crowd, one of the big objections that we hear a lot of times on the performance pay side of things is, well, how do you have a technician who's just billing for stuff that they're not doing, or how do you keep somebody from being too greedy in their billing, and they're going to go out there and fluff tickets. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and that's a challenge. But that comes with I guess the solution comes with monitoring the tickets and making sure that we are doing what needs to be done, and then also one of the mantras of Yarbrough Sons is we're not going to give you anything you don't want, need, or can't afford. And so sticking with that, and then also I think another helpful aspect of it is our production manager Keith is going back and calling all of our customers, the day after or 2 days after, and saying, hey, how did this call go? Are you happy with it? Did we get everything resolved? Those are two aspects of it anyway.
So just what I'm hearing is accountability. I think what performance pay does is it makes the individual, the technician, be held accountable for what they're doing on the job site, every job site. It's requiring that accountability to make sure that they're going to get paid what they believe they're worth and the work that they're doing. On the other side, you're saying it's going to be accountability to make sure that we don't have guys that override that line, if that's something that is going to happen. I don't know if we know of any companies that have had those issues. I'm sure they have. But you're saying it's just going to come down to accountability on all sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think hourly pay you can get in a problem too, where it's like
the opposite side.
The opposite side of that is like you can spend time at a customer's house, fix everything. You fix one item and you charge for that one item, but you're fixing 10 other things, and then at that point you're like, I'm not charging the customer, but I'm taking from the company. And because you're getting paid hourly and you're kind of squeezing out as much time as possible on that one particular job. So it can happen both ways. And so I think performance pay provides the most accountability for what you're doing. And then the processes that we've put in place with our quality control and going back on service tickets will keep us accountable for what we're doing. And at the end of the day, like, we want to coach our guys. And if we're having a hard time billing now, whenever we move to performance pay, like we're not going to have they're not going to start overbilling because they have a hard time doing it now. So it's like, and obviously if that becomes a problem, then that'll be a conversation for the service. That's a leadership conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
the other thing about it is we have a lot of guys, kind of like Tucker was saying, we've got a lot of guys that want to help the customer. And so, having that, continuing to have that attitude of, wanting to help the customer and do what's best for the customer kind of curbs that idea of, well, I'm going to charge them for this even though they don't need it.
Yeah, right.
So that really helps too.
I think it all circles back to hiring, and we're blessed with a team who fits this bill, is hiring a team of high moral character. Hiring a team who values their word, and we're blessed to be surrounded by those guys. Yeah. And I think that's the switch that gets flipped in leadership a lot of times is really kind of didactic, because on the leadership side of things, I always say this to you and to Bryce and Philip is, I would rather you guys be, I'd rather be pulling the reins back on you guys than, me having to drag you forward, because that's you guys taking the leadership, taking the onus and running with it. Yeah. And I think the inverse of that is true on, the service side of things. I think a lot of times if you're having to pull the reins on people, well, then we might have the issue where we're overbilling or doing things, that shouldn't be being done. However, I think what creates some tension sometimes is, well, in the service manager, even, in the install seat, where it's like, we're asking for things to be done a certain way, that it feels like we're trying to drag forward. But I think that's just the Jocko plug, but that's the dichotomy of leadership. That is the constant tension that you find yourself in, is either you're constantly either pulling or being pulled. And but at the end of the day, if we make that 10% progress every year, that 5% progress every year, chipping away at it. Because just, to tell a little story on you, I remember whenever we first started talking, performance pay and, that whenever you were first into the service manager seat, and I don't think I knew enough at that time either to communicate clearly what the vision of performance pay looked like. But there was tension between, the two of us. Nothing hostile or anything, but there was tension of like, I'm not sure how this is going to work.
Nothing hostile that he knew of.
Yeah.
There's two people in the office that are larger than me arguing.
But there was tension in conversations of, well, I'm not sure about that. I'm not, but I think that's the thing of like, it's just the constant chipping. It's the constant communication. It's the egoless approach to, leading with an open hand. And I think that's the only way that change can be achieved within a department or in a company.
I think something too is, I think oftentimes you have this tension between conflating the concept of like a system and culture and what a system does to a culture. And so it's like, oh, if we do X or this system, we do this, we adjust this mode of pay, what does that do to our culture? Like, what does that do to our guys? And I feel like from the technician standpoint, those are the questions you get a lot. It's like, well, then I'm worried that we'll be doing XYZ to the customer and not doing, ABC, and so it's I think it's super important. That's why you invest so much into your leadership, invest so much into your guys as far as your culture goes, and it's so important to have those good quality guys, that Tucker was referencing, this of upstanding moral character, the guys that you bring on to be a part of your team, so that when you plug a system into your culture, that it adapts to your culture and not the inverse. And so I think that's we're worried about, and there's two things. Those aren't independent pillars, right? Those two things are connected, because your systems can influence culture, and culture can influence systems. But you need the gravitational pull to be centered around the culture, and the system revolves around the culture. So, yeah.
Have to have a clearly defined true north.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I guess, all right, so this just kind of moving a little bit more personal. So this is kind of a work-life balance kind of question, but it's, I think we've kind of talked on the podcast before. It's like work-life balance. That's a kind of a hot button topic, but it's, it's a little bit of a misleading question, because it's like, well, I mean, what is that really? But like, what does that look like for you? Like, so you're dealing with, one, you've got a technical side of your job, right? But two, you're dealing with the soft skill side. You're dealing with guys and all the various problems that they've got, and then also the customer's problems. How do you balance whenever you go home, like Swaim is on versus Swaim is like going hunting? What does that balance look like for you?
That's turning my phone off. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing. And we've made some changes here recently, I say within the last probably 4 or 5 months. But my wife would get on to me because I was on call every weekend with the guys. You know, that was one of those things that anytime somebody's out in the field and they need technical help, they're calling me. And so in the last 4 or 5 months, we've changed that to where I've actually put on the on-call schedule our production manager and our maintenance manager. And so it's a rotating schedule with who the guys are supposed to be calling for help. And that has helped a lot. But yeah, those first probably 3 years, my wife would get on to me because somebody'd call, and if they were close and they needed help, I'd up and go. And you know, that's not sustainable in life. No. It's really not, because you're not spending time with the kids, you're not spending time with the wife. But you know,
the whole reason you were at work.
Yeah. And it was a tough thing for me, just being willing to, you know, ignore a call, turn my phone off, something along those lines. Because like a lot of our guys, I'm all about helping people. And when somebody calls me, I'm going to help them as best as I can, you know, anytime they call me. And that's one thing. Another thing that Keisha, my wife, got onto me for is just being like that. It's a great characteristic.
I'd venture to say it's one of the reasons she loves you.
Maybe, but it can also be taken to an extreme.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
All right. So going for, you know, obviously we've been talking about a relationship with the wife and the guys underneath you. What is some customer relations and some good service practices that you think, you know, the importance of building that relationship with the homeowner? What would you say would be the most crucial thing as a service technician or maintenance technician?
Find something. As far as relationship with the customer, when you're out there on their, you know, at their house, and you're going through and, you know, you're looking at their system, and something catches your eye, you know, and one thing that I always did, because thermostat's on the wall, in a lot of houses, right there around that thermostat are family pictures. You know, talk with something that you're interested in with the customer that it seems that they're interested in as well. And mine was always, oh, you've got a big family, or, you know, hey, you know, your wife was a looker back in the day. I never went that far.
She's sitting in the living room. She's like, back in the day. I don't like this guy.
Get out of my house. Oh man, that's why I got such a pop, because we knew that you didn't do that.
But
And the husband was like, that's a picture of me.
Boy, I'm in a glass case of emotion right now.
But you know, finding something in common with the customer and building that rapport with them, you know, that goes a long way when you're a service technician out in the field in the customer's home, in, you know, getting the customer to see where you're at, and you know, when you build that rapport, they're more likely to trust you and your opinion.
And I think that's the thing too, is it's like you talk about the, you know, company founded on Christian values. It's like the call that Paul gives is, you know, be all things to all people. And I think that's the thing that is, you have to be that. It's not that you're being fake, but you have to be a chameleon. You have to find common ground and, you know, want to forge that relationship.
Yeah, but you also can't go too far on it.
Exactly. You can't look at a family photo and say that their wife was a looker back in the day.
You know,
That's a good example.
That could be 90. They could have been like in a, you know what? There's circumstances.
Depends on the situation, I guess.
Yes, yeah. Now, if you're at your house trying to fix your air conditioner and you're talking to your wife, then sure.
Don't say back in the day.
Don't say back in the day. That's a bad idea.
So I've always thought of it as within a home, especially on residential, whenever you're in their house, like there are you could see like snippets of maybe hobbies that they like to do, or like things they do on a consistent basis. You know, in in Oklahoma, we've got a lot of guys that really appreciate muscle cars, and so they'll have some. So anyways, I was at a house yesterday, and he had it was a red Camaro, and looked sharp. Anyways, and I joked with him. I was like, you kind of scream loud, make a big deal, and be like, oh man, dude, it's like, what do you got underneath that tarp? And, just kind of look at him, and he's like, oh, yeah. It kind of opened up, and I was like, now is that candy apple red, or he's like, no. I was like, oh, it must be Fiesta red. He's like, well, no, he's like, technically it's a Ford red on a Camaro car. I just like the color. I was like, oh, okay. Anyways, and we're sitting there talking, and
so anyway, I lost all respect for him.
And so, but he was like, yeah. I was like, what, don't hold it against me, but obviously you're a Chevrolet guy, like. Maybe my wife's family's worked for Ford for 40 years, anyways, and so anyways, and take that with a grain of salt. And he kind of chuckled. He's like, no, yeah, you're good. And then whenever I was comparing options from like the best, and then the second best, I was being like, the best is like going with the Chevy, and the second best is the Ford, and you make those connections and within those conversations, and the ability to bring that up, and I found out that. His wife was from Rush Springs, and she had won like the watermelon. She was a watermelon queen. Anyways, really fascinating. And I was doing a hot water tank change out as well with a full system replacement. So I was giving an incentive for doing both. And so, and on the software that we use, I can write in a custom bid. Mm-hmm. And so on that custom bid, I said honorary watermelon queen discount plus hot water tank replacement incentive. And so just those funny, anyways, he was cracking up about that. He's like, I can't wait to show my wife. This is gonna be so funny. And so, and you do those little things, you make a big deal about them. And if you make a big deal about them, they're going to feel important. And if they feel important, and you make them feel important, that's a really, really good way to build trust. And so,
and it's not that you're trying to build, you're not gaming the system. You're not building the trust just because that's the thing. Like, it's not an extortionary tactic. No. It is a core belief that we have, and other contractors you should have in your business. It is a disservice to that customer if they don't go with you and your team. It is a disservice to their home if they don't go with you and your team. And that's why building the trust and playing the game and being all things to all people in that
doing the horse and pony show
is so important, because you have to have that intrinsically held belief that if you don't do everything you can to win their business, it's a disservice to them, it's a disservice to you. And that kind of completes that picture of we have to do the small things right, and that's not just fix the air conditioner.
And that's why it has to be a strive to be the best that we can be in everything that we do. And in those situations where kind of segue into handling when things go wrong, how do you handle those situations?
So it's
customer relations or internal.
It's attitude. It's keeping calm. Okay. With customers, and I don't get it a whole lot, and I'm thankful for that. Yeah. But we do get customers that call in. They're upset about one thing or another.
No.
Yeah. And it's doing one thing. It's doing what's right for the customer. It's seeing their point of view. Yeah. And one big thing is just listening to them. Mm-hmm. Because when people are upset, a lot of times they just want somebody to listen to them, to listen to what they're upset about and their opinions on what we can do to get it taken care of. Yeah. And keeping calm in those situations is huge. Yeah. I'll say that in my 4 years of being service manager, I've hung up on 2 people. But I've talked to thousands, right? And not thousands of upset customers. I talked to thousands of people, but I've only hung up on 2 people when they've been upset to the point that I'm not going to take a cussing from anybody.
Nope.
And so
It's like-
I'll hang up. And
That's
what
like
happens,
Darren Yarbrough rule number 2 is you don't take a cussing from anybody. If you don't take it from anybody on the team, you don't take it from a customer.
Yeah. And it's funny because what happens is they will call back and their attitude will change.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you stay calm and you say, hey, I'm not gonna take a cussing from you. If you start in again, I'm gonna hang up on you.
Right.
And when they start in again and you hang up on them, they'll call back and their attitude's changed. They're a little bit calmer, but it's not getting mad or in their face about it. You have to stay calm in everything.
Yeah, it's in relations. You don't want to create a positive feedback loop for them. That when I get mad at Yarbroughs or whenever I yell or cuss, they do what I say.
Yeah,
and so you just can't fold.
Yeah,
and so it's like, hey, listen, like this is the fastest way for me not to do what you want me to do.
Yeah.
Also, too, I think something that this is just word of encouragement to other contractors. Whether you're our size, bigger, smaller, doesn't matter. If you have managers in a seat over a team, you have to give them execute authority. Like that is the reality of the situation. If your managers have to go and ask up the chain to get something cleared. Now, obviously, there are things that come up, and clearly, that's where you trust the person that's in the seat to make that call. Because that's, I think, something that we've done a halfway decent job on is given you guys, you and Mac and Keith and Philip and James, the execute authority of, hey, here's what we're seeing, here's what's coming down the pipe, and just in case I can't tell you the number of times, not that many, that Swaim's come back to my desk and handed me an invoice and said, hey, this customer's ticked off, and here's what I've done, here's everything. I think we're resolved, but if they call or leave us a review, here's your ammunition. And that's an empowering thing for both of us, because we're not having to, the checks and balances are such that we can move fast and break things, as opposed to have to sit around and twiddle our thumbs and hem and haw over every fine detail on it.
Yeah. And early on, in when I first became service manager, I would bring stuff to you or to Darren and say, hey, what do we do in this situation? And the question was always, well, what do you think we should do? And at one point, Darren just straight up told me, hey, as long as you've got a reason to do what you're doing, do it. Yep. Putting that trust in my decision-making abilities. And that's really helped out on multiple fronts. Yeah. Even dealing with technicians that run across that kind of stuff. Yeah. They call and, hey, what do I do in this situation? Yeah. What do you think you should do? Yeah. Okay, let's get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's disseminating that leadership to the most forward point of control. Right. So it does no good to punt it up the chain of command, so to speak, because we're not I'm not the one interacting with the customer. I haven't seen the customer. I haven't talked to him. I don't know the situation. I can familiarize myself as best I can, but mostly it's going to be listening to a dial pad recording of a ticked off customer or something like that, or it's going to be listening to a RILA where a service tech was interacting with a homeowner, and that only goes so far. Whereas giving the service tech the execute authority of, hey, what do you think we should do? Okay, do it. If we've got a reason, we've thought it through. It's something that we've said on the podcast before is, there's no such thing as mistakes, just learning opportunities. And if you walk into a decision and you make a decision that is in the best interest of the customer and in the best interest of the company, then, and you can justify it and you can live with your reasoning, then we can live with it too. Now, that's not to say that there's not going to be coaching opportunities and, hey, here's what we could have done better, post-mortem on the situation. But I think that's something that is super empowering to your team to know that, hey, if I can justify that this was in the best interest of the customer, in the best interest of the company, that's the cross point, the cross section that we're looking for. And if we can achieve 80% of that, then we're going to be pretty successful.
Yeah. I want to get some takeaways on what you think HVAC contractors can do for their service managers to empower them to make those decisions. If it's like a list of like actual things that you've learned over the years, if put yourself in the shoes of a business owner right now for an HVAC company, they have a service manager. They do not know how to delegate. They do not know how to empower their service manager. What would you do? How would you help that service manager be their best managing self?
See, that's a struggle because I have trouble delegating as well. But it's funny, but realistically, what helped me is just getting overloaded with everything.
What do you mean by that?
Having so many technicians that I can't keep up with what we've got going on. And it's a struggle at times, especially middle of summer, and you've got 11 technicians out there. I think at the time before we brought Philip over, we had 9 technicians out in the field, and that's a lot to deal with. And so getting overloaded, and then even after we brought Philip on in the maintenance manager position, I was still trying to keep up with all of the guys, and it was almost a crash and burn scenario. I mean, I was way overloaded, but as far as advice to service managers, if I was the owner of a company and had a service manager underneath me, it would be the same as kind of the same thing that Darren and Tucker told me. This is your department. You own it. And so get things done however they need to be done. As far as the delegation side of it, I still struggle with it.
To tell a story on Swaim, probably a year before we brought Philip over, we were talking, growth, and this was during rather fast expanding portion of our company's history. In a matter of 4 years from the time that Swaim took the seat, really, till today, went from 4.5, 5 million to 10, 10.5, somewhere in there. And so over 4 years, we doubled the size of the company, and it was kind of a breakneck moment. And about a year before we brought over Philip into the maintenance manager seat, Swaim and I were talking and just talking about growth and where the company was heading and things like that. And he said, Tucker, when do you think we'd add, another manager? Like, what's the barometer for needing? And at this point, I don't think you were fishing for like, hey, I need help. We were just legitimately talking. And I jokingly said, well, Swaim, it's, when you holler calf rope. and it wasn't, not to be flippant about it, but I think that's, if we try to plan for every contingency, we can hinder growth and hinder opportunity. Yeah. And, that's the thing where you talk about making it your department and that you own it. That is to the business owners out there. It's a call to have a true north, have a clear vision of where you want the company to go, and communicate that vision clearly to the team. Because then and only then will your managers and your leadership team be capable of helping you achieve that, and helping you grow with that. Because without it, there's no decision to be made. We don't know what decisions to make. And so I think that's the thing where we tell you, the department's yours, because we know that you're on board and you know where we're going, you know where we want to go.
Yeah. So, as you kind of look forward into as like what you want the service department to be, what are some goals in your mind that you're like, I think this is a good goal to achieve for us? And it could be kind of something generic or something specific, but where do you see kind of things moving forward as the industry kind of grows and changes?
Yeah, I thought about that, and we're moving in that direction right now, but getting to the point of being able to have those guys that will basically be autonomous. Being able to send a guy out and not have to worry about that's my vision anyway, is being able to send a guy out and not having to worry about what they're going to say or what they're going to do or anything along those lines. And for the most part, I don't think that we do anyway. But having those guys that are able to do that, I know we've got plans for the future as far as the vision of the company, and I've had conversations with Tucker over this, but for me personally, kind of stepping back from the service manager position and being more of a of a team coordinator, to where, I am able to take that time and dig into certain aspects, really get those processes and procedures nailed down, and work on figuring out the training and the implementation of those, along with being able to dig into the numbers and see, where are we struggling? What do we need to do? Is there something that needs to change in that aspect of it?
Yeah. That's really good.
So, just being able to step back and then be a coordinator versus a manager is.
Dive into the numbers, you nerd.
Hey, one of my favorite evolutions of Swaim is that I hooked him up with his second monitor because he was getting to a point where he was like, Bryce, can I get another monitor around here? And I looked at him because he's been working in spreadsheets and doing a lot more intense stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, man. So I found a monitor. We hooked it up, and this guy he's an Excel wizard now. I think he works more in Excel than I do. So I think that's been an evolution that I witnessed in real time this year. Is pre-Excel Swaim, and now we have full throttle Excel.
Post-Excel
Excel
Swaim.
I'm still learning.
Yeah.
There's much more it can do.
But I love it, though, because it means that we're getting more into the data, and you're getting into the data, and that's a really awesome place to be. So I think it's just really cool. Every time I see you with an Excel sheet, I get kind of happy. So
Yeah. What are, as we're kind of wrapping up and everything, do you have any concluding thoughts? Anything that you're excited about?
I'm excited about the next group of guys that we're going to go and visit. Because we do have a more firm plan of what we're looking for.
Go and visit
Votex. Yeah.
Nice.
For recruiting purposes, because we do have a more firm plan on, what we're looking for and what we're planning on doing with these guys. Yeah. With the onboarding process and things of that nature. Which, to be honest, I've still got some work to do on that. But
you never arrive, though. That's something I've been pounding the drum on for probably the last year and a half. Is we never arrive. You never arrive. Everything is just a false summit. You think, oh man, we've got it, and then it's like, oh, crap, there's another hill to climb, and it's just a constant push of that. And so having that to work on is still, that's
it's the same thing that Paul said. Is I press on, but I haven't attained it yet.
Yeah.
So and that attitude just it permeates everything.
Yeah.
So,
Like I gotta really figure out how to enjoy hiking.
Gotta get really good at walking.
I need some new shoes.
what's your? I wanted to ask this real quick, just to we talked about all the things that we have been doing, that you have been doing, and do you have a vision for the future of your department and how things are looking ahead in 2025, 2026?
I've got a vision. A lot of it deals with. As far as what I've been looking at, a lot of it deals with numbers and projections, and I don't want to get into the details of it. As far as what I'm hoping for and looking for. Do it. But with the guys, just growth. I'm hoping to add a couple of technicians, and graduate a couple of technicians out of the maintenance program, and bring them on and really get them integrated and running service calls, trouble calls, and go from there on it. And we've got one guy that we're really, really excited about. We've got a couple other guys that we're pushing to get to where they need to be. And so running those scenarios through my head on how we can get these guys there is really where I'm at right now.
Absolutely. Well, Stephen, we appreciate you taking the time this morning to sit down, talk with us, shoot the bull a little bit, kind of talk vision, company, and where we've been and where we're going. Guys, be sure subscribe, give us a follow, give us a shout out. If you've got any questions, leave it in the comments below. Let's get out of here. Here we go.
See y'all.
See ya.